center, you have the old architecture are done. First is co-location, secondly is cloud, and then thirdly, the new big use for AI is training, which actually the Blackwell chips are what 132 kilowatts, right, demand, going to 600 kilowatts of Rudin, but cloud architecture is only 10 kilowatts, right, less than 10 kilowatts. So you look at that, and then you have to ask yourself, where's the supply demand imbalance? Is it too much supply potentially on the hyperscale training side? But in China, the word is east side is for data, west side is for compute. Because east side is where it's cooler, much cheaper power. Right? For example, China doesn't have a power constraint issue. 2% of the power today is consumed by data center, going to 4% by 2030, going to 2030. By 2035, it's expected to be 10% of the total power. And it has a much more modern power grid. When you take all that in the equation, then you realize in China, you're seeing a little bit of how the world actually could play out. Because China is one big country. You have the training being done on the east. You have compute being done on the west, where it's closer to population. So latency matters. Inference is actually where it's driving the demand right now. So the supply-demand imbalance could very well go back to which part is the supply-demand imbalance. Very well, we could actually be completely undersupply on the cloud architecture side, right, where it drives application, it drives inference.
Well, where do you see growth? Where do you see the fastest growth in the Asia Pacific region right now?
Certainly, China is playing catch up. Where China this year they're talking about $50 billion US plus of capex spending. So China actually went through a very high capex spending during COVID because of stay at home, e-commerce adoption, and so on and so forth. And then went through a lull because of the chip war with US. So lack of ability.
Fair use, fair use, fair use. This video is for educational purposes only. I do not make any money off of my YouTube videos. Anyway, there's some questions I want to ask here. And it's connected to this. I'm not sure if anybody in my audience or even I would guess, I don't know, 99% of the world's religious people, no matter what religion you belong to, can tell me the answer to this question. What is the Tower of Babel? Or where is the Tower of Babel? Please. And it's connected to this. Let me say greetings, y'all. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Wherever you are. I just asked a question. And I made, boy. Let me rephrase it. I asked the question, and then I put forward a premise that no, 99% of the people, I'll say 99%, who have a religious belief or affinity can give me the answer to it. There are people who know the answer. There are people who know the answer, but have kept it silent. But anyway, the video we're watching has they're talking about AI and computing and everything that connected to the computing and AI with cell phones. They're talking about data centers. Everything that is electronic today is connected to a data center in some way. It is computer operated. Unless that computer is not connected to the web, and most computers today are connected to the web, because even if you have like, let's start with an airline system. You have an airline system that The airline has several takeoff and landing airports around the world. And every time they board somebody in one of those aircraft, or some cargo on one of those aircraft, buy some fuel or whatever, that system is connected to the web. Either most of the large airlines have two sets of storage, their own storage system and cloud storage. They might keep 90% of their history on cloud storage. And the other 10% is kept on their system, which is like people buying tickets or who have traveled in the last 20 days or whatever the case might be, that they can easily access the data. But going back a year, tax purposes, for payment purposes, for lease purposes that extend over years. You know, airline might buy 2 million pounds of fuel. So that information has to be stored somewhere that can be recalled. Everything now is going to cloud storage. The data that your mail, Yahoo Mail, Gmail, whatever mail you have, cloud storage. You back up your phone, cloud storage. The data center that runs 24/7, that too is backed up. And some people are thinking to themselves, how can we back up that? Yeah, they need. If you own a cloud storage facility, you better back up your stuff, because if you lose some people's information, guess what? You on the hook for it, and your insurance company will have to spend billions to pay off these people. So they too have backups. All of this requires power. What kind of power are you going to use to power these systems and centers? Where are you going to put them? It's coming to a point now where the competition between the US and China, the US is no longer taking a back seat to anybody. They're going full on competition. That data centers have to be built in the US or somewhere where the US can control it. You're getting people like Saudi Arabia getting involved. But they have the ability to power their system. Qatar, that's where you see Qatar Economic Forum, Gulf States, GCC. GCC, there goes that GCC again, at the center of it. Now, to understand the process of this thing, you can use oil. We don't produce enough oil to make all the chemicals that produce the fuel for generators. Solar power is coming into being. Is building more solar power systems around the planet. Even here in Barbados, there's several solar power plants on the island. People are building them and feeding them into the grid. Natural gas, that's the other plentiful commodity. Wind. But wind cannot reach the stage of generating millions of gigawatts because the generators that are being used are made so that the average person can't buy one. They're deliberately building them so that that will not happen. The other thing is that there's competition for these fuels, and not many people have the kind of gas that can power this. The amount, the quantity. Russia. You see, one of the reasons why Russia got into the U.S. went after Russia. That gas not being able to go to China will constrict the growth of China. And the other day, I saw an article that said Russia says we're going to crush Microsoft and Zoom. I don't know if you know about Zoom and Microsoft, but it's not only Zoom and Microsoft. They're going to go after everybody because just like China is going after them, now everybody's going to have to face Russia too. Before the face was on China, now they got to face Russia. And Russia is the man with the gas. One of the problems that's going to be created is that with so many data centers and so much requirement for power, small countries like Barbados and other Caribbean countries, the cost of their power generation is going to go up because the lack of natural gas on the open market. Guess what it's going to do to the price? Good evening. And this ripple effect of things from just that data center is going to affect everything on the planet. The hospital that you might have to go into, the doctor that you might have to see, the food. You know how much of the fertilizer and so forth come from natural gas? If you are a diasporan and you are claiming you're going to move to Africa and live the good life, are you looking at these things? You might say Africa has got a lot of gas. Are they producing what is necessary for the growth of Africa just to maintain? I used to buy gas in Gambia, bottled gas. And there are times when you couldn't get it. Gambia's got gas now, but they import it. They're not taking it out of the ground. Most African countries, the leadership doesn't manufacture things because they don't want to employ their people. When you got a technical job, you have to educate your people, and then you have to pay them a living wage. If you can keep people starving and poor, you can control them. You get why Africa is like the condition it's in? This is one of the reasons why. That control. Africa start producing. Those old leaders have to go. This ripple effect of this, that's just one small video that you just see. You see how things are on the planet? Most of us don't think about this because it's not in our mirror, you know. We think of food. Food is in our mirror, living, home, shelter, clothes, our children's education. You don't think about the things that affect all of that. I hope if you're going to become a diasporan going to Africa especially, you start thinking about these things. 1 year supply of natural gas. There are bottled tanks that you can buy and put that in. All right. You can have your own generator operating off natural gas. The village that you're in, you can power the whole village. Think about these things now. Start planning. I'm telling you, things are, you haven't seen what they're calling the black swan. They're even talking about things like this as part of the black swan. Anyway, please write down the answers you think of the Tower of Babel. What do you think it is and where? Let me know. Leave a comment. Leave a comment and let me know. Peace.